Did you know that in some countries in Asia, women not only outnumber men, but also face tough challenges in their daily lives? From gender discrimination and domestic violence to poverty and economic inequality, these are the stories we rarely hear about. In this video, we explore 9 Asian countries where women face challenges that may surprise you. Let's travel together to the world of these strong and fighting women and hear their voices. Armenia. In Armenia, there are more women than men. This is due to various reasons, including the migration of men to other countries for work, especially to European countries and Russia. This migration has reduced the number of men in society and contributed to an increase in the proportion of women. Women in Armenia face many economic challenges. Many of them work in the informal sector of the economy and find it difficult to access stable, well-paid jobs. Poverty and unemployment are among the problems that women in this country struggle with. Selective abortion is still practiced in the country, meaning that more boys are born than girls, but the male mortality rate in Armenia is high and many of them also leave the country in search of work. Today, there are large Armenian communities around the world, including in Russia, France, and the United States. Poverty is the main reason for men leaving the country, with almost 25% of the population living below the poverty line and 10% unemployed. In June 2023 alone, Armenian authorities investigated 1,000 cases of domestic violence. There are only 2 shelters for survivors of domestic violence in the country. These shelters, with a capacity of 24 women and their children, are almost always full, and the country's authorities do little to protect women, many of whom are willing to emigrate abroad with a foreign man who can save them from inhumane treatment in the country. They just want to be loved and valued the way they deserve. If you have been to Armenia, tell us in the comments below. Georgia. Georgia is a small country located right at the crossroads of Europe and Asia along the Black Sea coast. Like Russia and Turkey, Georgia has a population of only 3.7 million, about 53% of whom are women. The 1990s saw many locals leave the country, with many male citizens in particular opting to seek work across its borders, leading to a high rate of emigration, even though the Georgian government has managed to stabilize its economy in the past few years. 15.6% of the country's population lives below the poverty line and nearly 12% is unemployed. The country has several manufacturing industries, but is still largely dependent on agriculture, with ties to Turkey and Russia also improving. Activities such as heavy alcohol consumption and smoking are leading to high male deaths in the country. Although women are more numerous in Georgia, they are often the victims of gender-based violence. This problem is still very common in the country, and there have been several cases of women in recent history where women face discrimination everywhere in Georgia, including in politics. They are less represented in the country and are exposed to misogynistic and sexist rhetoric against political opponents, which the government, despite its severity, has failed to address even at the highest levels. Have you ever seen any of these cases in Georgia? Share it with us below. Nepal. Nepal is a country located in the Asian continent north of India, and its capital is Kathmandu. Nepal has a population of around 29 million. The country is bordered only by China and India. Nepalese men tend to migrate abroad in search of work, while women are left alone to take care of the family. Women now far outnumber men and make up over 52% of the total population. More than 20% of the population lives below the poverty line and almost 11% of the people are unemployed. The government has managed to improve this situation slightly over the years. Many people are still at risk of succumbing to extreme poverty. especially for women who are more vulnerable in Nepal. This means that they are not equipped to find formal employment themselves, and this results in women working hours for much lower wages. In addition, young girls are forced to marry much older men, which leads to high mortality among young pregnant women. They are not allowed to remarry, and have even fewer rights. They still have a long way to go, but things are finally starting to change for the better for these women. Women in Nepal just want to be safe in their country from harmful social practices and dangerous trafficking rings. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is an island country in South Asia located in the Indian Ocean, on the southwestern side of the Bay of Bengal, separated from the Indian peninsula by the Bay of Manar and the Strait of Poke. Women in Sri Lanka make up approximately 52% of the country's total population. Men tend to work in more hazardous jobs, and many even migrate to foreign countries. This creates an imbalance in the ratio of men to women in Sri Lanka. About 14.3% of the population is below the poverty line. The country relies heavily on its agricultural industry to sustain its economy. Sri Lanka is often hit by heavy rains and floods, which reduce its agricultural production and are a major cause of poverty, although women make up a large portion of it. Only 35% of their population contributes to Sri Lanka's economy, many of whom are reluctant to work, even if they are qualified. The gender pay gap is a major problem in the country, as women are offered much lower salaries than men. Domestic violence and general harassment are very common in the country. Most women have suffered domestic violence from their partners or life partners, but they are reluctant to speak out for fear of being disturbed in their lives. Sri Lankan women want to be treated with the respect and love they deserve. Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is the 9th largest country by land area and the largest landlocked country in the world, with its western border being the Caspian Sea and a mountain range running all the way to its eastern border. Kazakhstan's population of approximately 20 million is made up of over 120 ethnic groups, but about 52% of the population is female. The main reason for the increase in the number of women in the country is that the average life expectancy of women in Kazakhstan is higher, but their average life expectancy is 77 years while men only live to 67 years. The country is rich in natural resources, and has attracted a lot of foreign investment over the years. 5.2% of the population lives below the poverty line, and almost 5% of them are unemployed. Most of the locals work in agriculture and raise livestock. Many Kazakh women remain single for years, because many families cannot afford to pay dowries, and women are left on their own. Do you know any Kazakh women who would like to share your experience in the comments? Lebanon. Lebanon is located in the West Asian region, bordering Syria and Israel, and even has direct access to the Mediterranean Sea from its western border. The country has suffered greatly in the past few years as the war in the region has been prolonged, which has caused many Lebanese men to flee the country. Women have been seeking refuge from the war in their own countries for the past few years, as a result of which today 51.5% of the total population are women, most of whom are left alone to take care of their families and no one else to protect them from poverty and deprivation. The female population has more than tripled in the past decade. More than 44% of the country's people live below the poverty line now, according to the World Bank. This economic and financial crisis has forced thousands of households to ration their food supplies and cut off all non-food items. Most regions of the country have been affected by increasing poverty. Lebanon has never been easy for women, but the situation has worsened as the country has never adapted to the changing times, and the economic crisis has increased. The large presence of Christian and Muslim religious groups means that women have to take their issues to religious courts. These are always run by men and tend to ignore women's rights. Domestic violence is very common in the country. However, child marriage is also the worst problem plaguing the country. Both Muslim and Christian communities make things worse for women by allowing girls as young as 15 to marry older men. Kyrgyzstan is a landlocked mountainous country in Central Asia to the west of China that gained independence from the Soviet Union in 1991 and has struggled politically and economically since, with many of its leaders leaving the country in search of work. This has led to a growing female population now residing in the country. Almost 51% of the people here are women, and they are forced to run their families alone. According to the Asian Development Bank, 33.2% of the country's population lives below the poverty line and 4.1% of them are unemployed. Although agriculture is the country's largest sector and it also has gold reserves, they still do not make up for other economic shortcomings. It also has very weak financial institutions, with few people having access to banks, so most people cannot invest or save their money, as a result of which women are often marginalized in the country and are told to stick to their traditional roles as housewives. If women raise their voices against injustice, not only will violence against women and girls be ignored by authorities, but they will also be denied basic rights. Vietnam, bordered by Laos and Cambodia, Vietnam is known for its beautiful beaches and rivers full of ancient Buddhist structures, but it is still a developing country. As a result, a number of Vietnamese men are leaving the country in search of jobs in hazardous occupations. Women now make up 50.6% of Vietnam's population. Over the past decade, the Vietnamese government has done much to improve its economic situation. A large portion of the local population is still economically vulnerable, with about 1 in 5 Vietnamese living below the poverty line and 1 in 10 at risk of falling below. This is especially true for those living in rural areas of the country and engaged in agricultural activities. Agriculture is still the largest industry in Vietnam, employing almost half of the population. The government has failed to address gender-based violence against women in Vietnam. Nuns report that 2 out of 3 women have experienced at least one form of physical, emotional, or economic violence, but the most shocking part about violence against women is how acceptable it is. In Vietnamese society, over 90% of women who experience some form of violence do not seek help from authorities. Vietnamese women are very loyal and hardworking, making sure to put their family's needs before their own. However, they also deserve someone who can value and cherish them. Cambodia is a country of nearly 17 million people in Southeast Asia, bordering Vietnam, Thailand, and Laos. The country has a troubled history, with decades of conflict and economic and political instability. Women make up 50.5% of its population. According to the Asian Development Bank, 17.8% of its population today lives below the poverty line, making Cambodia one of the poorest members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Although 25% of the population lives in cities, almost 1 in 5 live in slums or informal settlements with limited access to basic amenities. An estimated 4,000 homeless children live in Cambodia's 7 largest cities, home to about 2 million people. Women in Cambodia face severe discrimination and are denied basic rights. Women's rights defenders face constant threats of harassment and criminal charges from private companies and related elites, including the police and other authorities. Poverty in the country has also contributed to child marriage in Cambodia, with an estimated 19% of girls married before the age of 18, and 2% forced into marriage before the age of 15. We have also seen increased trafficking of brides from Cambodia to China for years. Many women are tricked or forced into marriage with Chinese men, making them more vulnerable to violence, forced labor, and even slavery. Today we are sharing inspiring stories of brave women in Asia, women who are changing the world with strength and hope. If this video touched and motivated you, be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with more videos about strong and influential women from around the world. Let's amplify these women's voices and share more stories. Every subscribe is a step forward in raising awareness and supporting women's rights. Join us as we continue this journey.